You've built a successful life, but now what? Welcome to the Gen X Collective podcast. We're for men who are navigating midlife with purpose, health, wealth, family, work, and the mark you've made on the world. We're talking about the stuff that really matters with experts who have solutions, advice, and a sense of humor. And now, here's our host, Laurent Truc.
Welcome back to the Gen X Collective podcast. I am your host, Laurent Truc. Today, we're talking to Chris Cutter, co-founder and partner of a crypto hedge fund called Blockbridge Capital, and someone who's been deep in the trenches of crypto for a long time. So whether you're dabbling in Bitcoin or you still think crypto is for gamers and gamblers, buckle up and tune in, as this episode is going to be a ton of fun. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Laurent. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Appreciate you making the time.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited. Bitcoin is obviously a hot topic for everyone. And I think it's a hot topic for Gen Xers as well. I think there's all different shapes and sizes around how into it they are or how much they're looking at it from the outside. So having a pro like you willing to answer some questions is going to be great. I appreciate it.
For sure.
Can we start from the top? Would love to hear your background and how you got into crypto.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background's a little varied. Took a wild journey, wilder than most. Still like to live my life that way, but that's how you end up in something like crypto. I started out corporate, went to work for an agency, digital agency, building some tech and websites and whatnot. And after that, I launched my own agency, then launched my own software as a service tech startup, had a couple of those, and it was about 2015. My business partner was just running around telling everybody about crypto. He was like, "You should be in Bitcoin," and we were all like, "What's that?" I had heard of it, obviously, but I wasn't enamored with it yet. What kind of hooked me was when he started talking about the cryptography of it. I was blown away with the ability to secure a P2P transaction without some overlord saying that, yes, you can do this. Mm-hmm. And I could see the ramifications for what that would mean. I didn't know where it was going yet. I didn't even purchase it. I was watching it. And I watched for another 2 years, almost 2 years. I got in right before the 2017 bull run. Mm-hmm. And I think what really stoked the fire there for me was coming from a tech background, seeing ICOs as a new way forward for venture capital companies, or the lack of them, maybe, right? You could raise money with just a roadmap and a team and write some code. And I thought that was novel, and it was obviously a bubble. We'll talk more about that later, but it'll be something that I think could resurge. And it was kind of the first impetus to be like, wow, this is the space that I really want to spend the next era of my life in.
And back then, so 2017, did you right off the bat say, we're going to start a fund, or did you do some investing yourself first, get comfortable? Like what did the fund formation look like?
Yeah, so I was just investing personally. My business partner, Zach, we were partnered in multiple things prior to the fund. And we were on a road trip, actually, on our way to Chicago from where we're based out of in Ohio. And about a 6-hour car trip, so you can imagine everything comes up. And he's like, you know what crypto needs? It needs a way to make this complex market super approachable. We need to be able to make the risk boring. We need to be able to on-ramp these people that don't know how to secure it, don't know how to purchase it, don't know how to do the taxes, all of these different things, and don't even know how to spend 24/7 because this market doesn't sleep. So luckily, Zach doesn't sleep either, and he's always following it. Once we had that conversation, that was about in 2017, and it took us 2 years to figure it out, right? Like, how do you get registered with the SEC? How do you launch a hedge fund? How do you become compliant with a lot of government entities? Was an interesting struggle, but one that was ultimately super rewarding.
Excellent. So how old's the fund now?
5 years.
5 years. Awesome.
Yeah.
And what's the investment philosophy?
Well, I guess, I should say, this is not investment advice. Do your own research. All of the other legalese basics to get us started. Yeah. My personal philosophy, I'm a futurist. So I focus on macro trends. Sometimes in other asset classes, I'll follow whales. And in this one, I kind of treat it like Warren Buffett methodology. Like I buy what I love in this space. And more importantly, I buy who I love, whether that's partners, investors, or team members. I'm always trying to buy when the markets are scared. Like right now, I don't know when this will air exactly, but we've definitely seen some tumultuous markets as of late. And it's a great time to buy for years to come. The philosophy of the fund is more focused on the macro, just like I mentioned. We spread across different sectors. A lot of people don't know there's sectors in crypto. There's like platform tokens like Ethereum. There's store of value tokens like Bitcoin, DeFi tokens, which is decentralized finance, a whole bunch of other ones. And we pick the blue chips in those different sectors. And we kind of take an alt season approach. So usually Bitcoin is the leader in our cycle. We make a good run up on that. Then we diversify into the alts, make a lot of run up percentage wise in that. And then we balance back into the major top cap tokens. And that's just a great way to protect the downside of the 4-year cycle that we see.
Got it. Okay, you a bunch of acronyms that you just spit out, so we're gonna dive through some of this just to clarify. So let's start from the top. So a lot of people are like, is crypto a scam in general, right? Especially when you see some of the losses that people end up taking at a retail level. What's your take on it? I
guess it should be, why do you care? Is a great place to start.
Okay.
Because like that's, if you don't care about something, you might see it as a scam first off, right? Like, I think they should care because it's a road to freedom. There are scams in every asset space and especially emerging technology. Look at the 95 tech bubble. This is a hot take. I'm sure you love these on this show, but I'd argue the dollar is a scam too. It's just a scam we collectively buy into. And by that, I mean your dollar will purchase less next year. They'll print more. And sometimes the faith in the dollar becomes shaky, kind of like we're seeing right now with tariffs in China and what's going on. And so if faith were to drop there, that'd be the biggest rug pull, as we call it, in the history. But we just happen to call that world economics. Like we don't consider it to be that. So crypto for me is a step outside of that. It's a step outside of the centralized classic structure that we've built. It can serve as a roadmap to freedom. So then the scam question becomes, why does it have any value? That's what people ask. Like where gold has value, there's utility for gold, right?
Yeah.
But the answer really depends on what token we're talking about. Bitcoin is very similar to gold because it's a fixed supply and it's a great store of value. Its value is determined off of, just like the dollar, collective buy-in, but also computational work as it's solving and ordering the transactions, the computing power, the electricity spent, and that's where you get rewards from mining. So there's a whole lot of stuff that I could really nerd out on and go into that for you, but I actually think Bitcoin might be a better gold. That's my second hot take. I think Bitcoin's a better gold because it's, what if we mined an asteroid? What if we found a huge pocket of gold? So supply and demand economics, we could essentially devalue just based off of lack of scarcity. While it has a lot of utility, it becomes a worse store of value.
Sure.
Also, if you have a lot of gold, where are you going to keep it? Do you just want to carry around a gold bar to give to somebody? I can send $1 million in crypto in seconds with somebody across the world. Imagine doing that with gold.
Yeah. And the physical gold is not as liquid as crypto.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, you have to move it. Okay, let's talk about some terms. So you talked about Bitcoin, Ethereum is big. There's a bunch of altcoins out there. XRP is making the news all the time. So there's, you talked about coins for store of value. You talked about there's technology as part of some of these coins. Can you give a high level on some of these terms and what they're used for?
Sure. So like I said, we have different sectors. A store of value, just akin to gold, right? It's, I want to hold something that I know will appreciate in value and not depreciate through inflation. That's the main thing for store of value. Each token also has a proof behind it, which is essentially the ordering and verification of the transactions. Those proofs differ usually by sector as well. So proof of work is the proof that's behind Bitcoin. Proof of stake is behind Ethereum. And that is, again, just the ordering and verification. There's different reasons you might want those different proofs based off of speed, scalability, etc. But the sectors, that's really the main difference. And I don't think we've seen all of them yet. But a platform token is kind of where we'll see massive adoption and proliferation of the space over time. And that's where you see like Solana and Ethereum. Those are your platform tokens,
Okay.
Or at least the two biggest. And that's what we call a layer one. A layer two is something that gets built on top of it. So say somebody wants to build a project that has smart contracts, when that project is focused on only real estate or something like that. That would be a layer two, and it would use Ethereum as the layer one underneath it. So a platform token is really just the nuts and bolts, the plumbing for other projects to get built on.
But Ethereum itself as a coin is a payment system on that layer, correct?
Yeah, so it's like used for rewarding, right? So if like, if we'll keep the same concept of the real estate second project. If I wanted to transact right now to buy real estate, I need escrow, I need all these things, I need to prove that you have sent the money, that I own the property, that type of stuff. Well, that could be handled in a smart contract. And instead of paying funds to escrow or something, we could transact in Ethereum for that, to unlock, to do the purchase, or just to do the smart contract piece. There's also like the actual ordering of that transaction to send the money or send the deed or whatever. And that requires Ethereum just to power the network to like order that transaction.
The promise of that technology and all these second layers, I mean, it's been out there for years. I guess it started with NFTs and all that, but in the early days, there was talk about, hey, everything's going to be on the blockchain. You'll be able to move things around very rapidly, and it's going to be certified in a way that you've never seen before. It'll reduce fraud and all that. Is that still happening, or has that changed? Because it seems like it's taken a very long time to get off the ground. Like I'm not buying a house tomorrow on blockchain.
No, you could, but you're right. You're not, right? It's that long-term adoption takes the major players to come in. And I think just like anything else, they all have long-term staying power, but it'll look different from how it emerged to how it gains mainstream attention. NFTs, it was like Bored Apes and stuff like that. That's the big project that everybody might have heard of. But NFTs could be used to say that, like Rolex is using them right now just to like give you a certificate of authenticity, right? An NFT is essentially just a really unique token that represents something. So it could be that a deed of your home could be an NFT eventually. Those types of things, I think, take a major player to come in. And just like any other tech, we don't talk about like TCP IP protocols behind the internet. They might know an IP address, but they don't know the plumbing of the internet. They just open their browser and they do it, or they just swipe their debit card and they do it. They don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And this will be the thing that's just behind the scenes, regardless of what facet of the tech it is. And that's when you'll have macro adoption, because nobody will know they're adopting it.
So the thought, because initially the beauty that I saw in it is this whole concept of decentralization. And I envisioned a world where, hey, do we really need banks anymore to be able to transfer money from one place to the other? But do you think that first step is that the banks will start using the technology behind the scenes, you won't even know it, and then maybe eventually there will be no need for banks? Although I would imagine they would fight that.
Well, they're fighting it right now. Yeah. I'm sure we'll talk about XRP and some of the things. But yeah, I think that the systems, the powers that be, will have to implant the tech behind it, and they'll try to keep it centralized. That's because it's the powers that be. They've done it for millennia, right? Mm-hmm. But I still, as a maximalist, believe in the decentralized nature of it. I believe that we might, as consumers, start to fear what's going on, and we're looking for our own hedge against the standard systems, even as retail investors. And so I think that there's a lot of beauty in what this could be. That said, I still like centralized blockchains too, or I think that, there's a reason for a private blockchain and a public blockchain to exist. A healthcare company is a great example to have maybe a private blockchain because you don't want that data to be out there. Same thing with any other super sensitive type documents. You want less fail points. And so, or just more control. And I think that there's reasons for that in at least capitalism.
And in the example you just brought up on healthcare, that would be transferring medical records from a doctor to a specialist type thing. That would all just be maintained on the blockchain as an example.
Yeah, exactly. Or insurance and what's going on there, how these systems could be two different blockchains but interact together because the healthcare system keeps those records, but then they have to, adjudicate with insurance to make sure that everything is on the up and up. I think those things are great because they could actually eliminate waste. They could bring down the price of insurances that, in insurance's case, there's always like an actuary that's like, this is how much you need to pay. And that's all based off of a big glob of data that, they aggregate, and it's not based off of you. It's based off of the collective 35-year-old male or whatever. And so I think it's the kind of thing that blockchain to me is best because it can eliminate waste. It can eliminate fees. It can bring down prices because it maybe takes away a couple of the human steps. It is faster. It's more trustworthy. So all of those things could eliminate that waste.
Let's pivot back to investing for a bit. So there's a number of different ways to invest in crypto. You buy it, coin staking, mining, all that stuff. Can you walk through like what those are and I guess maybe your view on each one of those?
Sure. I do them all. So well, I think it's always good to just start with, like you said, the education. So staking is like a high yield savings account. It functions because it's powering the blockchain. So whether that's usually proof of stake tokens because you use it to then order the transactions. That falls in the bucket of decentralized finance, or DeFi as we call it. It's empowering the retail investor to do the same thing that usually is reserved for banks. Like the Fed gives money to the banks to then allow them to transact and do their stuff. And the Fed makes money on that and the banks make money on your money. Well, you're just essentially powering the bank like the Fed would. So that's cool. We stake a lot of tokens. It's sometimes not easy to do. You sometimes need a lot of crypto to stake certain nodes, as we call them, or master nodes. And so it's not as easy for a retail investor to do. Sometimes you can pool your staking, and like you can on Coinbase and things like that.
So is it simply you're buying an altcoin and then you're leaving it somewhere as a stake and they're paying you interest? That's right. Fundamentally, that's what you're getting. Okay.
Yep. And it's usually really good rates and compounding very nicely. And it's definitely a great way to minimize the volatility of what's going on the sideways side of markets, right? If it's market sideways, then you're just accumulating more crypto that way. And then you can get the appreciation on more crypto as the spot moves. So
who's on the other side of that? So I stake it with who? Like there's no bank, right? And how are they making money to be able to pay that kind of an interest?
So it's like the rewards of you're essentially powering, providing liquidity to power the blockchain network. And so there's rewards in that for just being the funding mechanism behind that. And so you're getting the rewards that way. And it varies based off of, DeFi protocols and where you're staking it. And so it's always best there's like platforms that exist to just see which token do I hold? What's the best place to stake it? Where can I get the most yield? How long should I lock it up? Right. If you think about it in traditional, you might be like, should it be in a high yield? Should it be in a CD? Should it be in other things? And we kind of have a lot of that same piece.
And what's that risk reward? Because I've seen some, to your point, that have like especially back in the day, like astronomical percentages of return. is the risk that you're parking your money and then the entire project falls apart and so you lose everything, or that they just don't pay you? Like, what's the downside?
I would say the downside's more of the project falling apart. There's one that I really did like, and I still like the project fundamentals. It was called Luna, and Luna fell apart because they, in my opinion, I think there's multiple opinions out there, but they started to swap between different chains and open up more on-ramps to the chain. So it actually gave more fail points and attack points to people that wanted to manipulate the market. And then they could actually move the value. And that was actually pegged to a stable coin, and which is another sector. Stable coin is usually mirrored or pegged to a certain value. Most cases, it's the dollar. Mm-hmm. And if you can move the peg or break the peg, it actually basically gets rid of all the faith in a project. And whales were able to do it with Luna because they had too many fail points. So that's where you're like, oh, well, if I had it staked, I just lost everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes another fail point that we've seen is if you had an entire exchange go down, and an exchange you could have had tokens locked up. That's happened multiple times over the years. And we've been able to dodge every bullet and or recover those funds, but it's not without its risk for that one.
Although we're in a better place today. I mean, back then there was a lot of regulation that would all of a sudden pop up that would force some of these to close, or the security wasn't as high and they would get fraud or whatever.
Yeah.
Are there still a lot of those that exist that are kind of risky?
I think that the space has gotten better. Just like, again, we've been through our bubbles. Every time we go through a bubble, it gets better, right? Yeah. We've seen it. We saw it with tech. We got to Web 2.0. Those projects became projects you could believe in. Same thing happens in our space. And I think you'll see it continue to become more regulated, but in a good way. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll also see more need for security to improve. I mean, we just had the Bybit hack, things like that. So that one's fresh, but it's been a while since the last attack.
Definitely want to talk more about those. Staking is one way to invest. Can you talk about mining and just other investment funds?
Yeah, so mining is essentially just on the other side. That's the proof of work side. So that's when and that's not always, but that's the main use case is proof of work. So mining for Bitcoin, that's when you are actually figuring out the next block of the chain and you're ordering all the transactions and you're doing it. Now, it's not you doing it, it's a computer and they're just running on these miners. You can pool your mining just like you can pool staking. It's costly to get into, really. It's kind of a cost prohibitive thing because those machines can be expensive. The electricity is expensive. It's also like one of the lowest areas of risk though, because you can just mine it and then have crypto and you didn't buy it. You just have it. And so, I mean, that's a potential good on-ramp for some people that are scared because it's like, oh, I'm just using electricity and computing power to make money. Okay. That's pretty manufacturing style-esque, right? We mine because I hope my landlord never hears this, but we mine because we get free electricity. So we definitely use those to our advantage because that can be the thing. And then there's, with miners, they can go bad. They a lot of the times countries right now are buying them up and trying to leverage the power for themselves. So again, it's hard for the retail to get into.
I was going to say, is there even a path for retail? I mean, now we're hearing about mining farms that are absolutely massive that find themselves in Norway where the temperature is very cool, so they can cool. Like, these are massive infrastructures with a lot of capital up front to build these out. Can Bob in his basement do this?
Yeah, it's actually crazy because like Bob in his basement could beat out those companies.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's basically a chance to your as each machine is doing it, you have a chance. It might be a less percentage chance of mining the block by yourself to do it, but you could, and it happens regularly where somebody that's small, not in a farm, wins a whole block, and the rewards are substantial in that. And so it's something you could do. A lot of people, when they're more individual, do pooled mining though, and that just basically says now Bob and his neighbor are doing it together in a way. through a digital interface to allow for them to have more of a competitive edge.
And it's not just for Bitcoin. There's mining of other coins as well out there.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you can mine multiple coins, and sometimes when you mine one coin, you actually get multiple coins. There's different types of miners. That's a whole podcast in and of itself. That one, reach out to me if you want to nerd out on. To talk about funds, the newest one is, I guess the newest-ish one that people want to talk about is ETFs. ETFs became a hot button topic. We've already had plenty put on markets. BlackRock is now an ETF for crypto. So that's one that provides huge validity to the space. So I really like ETFs in that way. But I actually think, besides being an easy entry point for the retail investor, there's a lot of negatives that I see in ETFs. You don't actually own that crypto. So you actually just own a share of a company that has the cryptos, right? So you own a share of the ETF. So lack of control of those funds and not having it there's a couple negatives there, right? You don't actually hold the crypto. So if that goes down, why did it go down even though you had the crypto? Another thing is like the staking on it or the airdrops. Like an airdrop is when a coin that uses a chain gets released. So like if I did what we call a fork of Bitcoin and I launched a new token, just like Dogecoin was a fork of Bitcoin, that would give me the equal amount usually to Dogecoin that I had in Bitcoin when they fork. They call that an airdrop, or usually that's how it happens. And so with an ETF, you don't get those airdrops. You don't get that staking. So like who's making that right now? Probably the custody partner that's actually custodying those funds if they're doing it. A lot of lack of regulation in that space currently as it relates to that. So again, easy retail entry point, but maybe not the best in my opinion. But I'm also a purist that wants to hold crypto. So
what's been legalized on the ETF side? So it's Bitcoin and Ethereum only, or are there more coins?
Solana has one or two that's like in the approval process. There are Ethereum ones. There are Bitcoin ones. I think Litecoin has some potential approvals out there as well. But yeah, the first two were, first was Bitcoin and then Ethereum came.
So you're not really getting a diversified portfolio. That ETF is one at most two coins, correct?
Well, even it's actually not two. They don't have any like index ETFs or anything like that.
Okay.
You know, it's just the pure token and the representation of that. So that's where you get to the other methodology, which is funds. And that's my space. It could provide a lot of value because you just get the simplicity of owning a share of a company, getting the K1. Your funds get pooled with partner money, so you can do more of that staking. So if you couldn't have ran a master node for staking previously, now you're pooled with investors and you can do that. You also get diversification, active management, all sorts of things. So it's kind of a great way for the retail person that has a good chunk of change to make the most out of it, rather than just buying, say, some Bitcoin on your Coinbase account.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. So somebody new to the space, they had $10,000. Like, how would you suggest that they invest in crypto today?
Well, regardless of the amount, I would say my strategy remains the same. Do some homework, buy something that you feel is strong. If you want to speculate on smaller cap tokens, research the utility and the regulation, especially because regulation is changing all the time. Look at meme coins, ICOs, NFTs, things like that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, like see who their partners are and their investor networks are. And if you believe in those things, you're like, oh, okay, well, I believe that it has more leverage to find a place in the market. And then just keep buying. Like I have all my family members, I try to be like, hey, buy whatever you can a month on the same day, recurring buys, dollar cost average in. And it's always better to do that than try to time the markets. And I see that over and over again. The retail investor gets in, they buy, they feel like, oh man, this market's dropping significantly. They get scared, they sell. and they turn paper losses into real losses. And when they could have just held and made good money. So it's never great to try to time the market, and you got to have some gumption. I mean, we've been through enough cycles to see that emotional trading doesn't really work here.
How does somebody who doesn't have the time to really research some of these projects, because some of these projects, like there's a lot of documentation out there that you have to dive into to understand them. And then there's a lot of competition for each one of the projects, right? It's not like, hey, I want to get into this real estate piece and I'm just going to pick that one company because there's a bunch of companies doing the same thing. So how do you recommend somebody doing that research?
There's a couple different places. A good place to start would be Coinbase has like a learn section and a learn and earn section where if you actually learn about a project, you can get a little bit of the crypto from that project, which is a cool way to get exposure for free just by putting some time into learning. But just treat it like you would any other stock. You know, you're going to put some hours of work in to find out information before you're buying a stock. And I think that holds true here. It's a little bit atypical, right? You're not going into Yahoo Finance to learn about this as an old person might for stocks. You know, there's Discords, there's Twitter or X. X is a great place to find information, and also just the actual sites themselves. You know, I have the ability to, you know, look at the code and recognize more things that other people would not, which is what makes me good at my job. But I think that just like you would when you're buying GE, you don't know how a light bulb gets made as an engineer. You just buy the company for whatever things. So whatever it is for you, you know, find something that makes you feel strongly about it. Again, XRP is kind of a good example of that right now. People are like, oh, well, banks are talking about it. The government's talking about it. XRP might be the thing that I want to speculate on. I think that's more of a speculative thing, but it still has its merit because of all of the news that's going on.
So actually, this is a great bridge into what I wanted to bring up next. So there's a term whales, right? These are extremely large holders of coins, and they influence pricing often on some of the smaller coins. Can you explain a little bit about what a whale is? And then can you dive into, and the reason I'm thinking about it from an XRP perspective is I think I saw an article yesterday that XRP just went down quite a bit because of some big whale. Talk a little bit about that mechanic. How does that work? Why is that allowed to work?
I wish I knew why it was allowed to work. I wish I knew why it was allowed to work in open markets too, just, you know, like the stock market and things like that. But whales are just that, lots of crypto or lots of dollars, and they have the ability to move the market because they can trade largely enough in relation to the percentage of daily liquidity or daily volume. And so they can really move a price. So they could buy in with a large enough amount, the price can go up because of that. They can sell it. It can then go down, and they can just repeat this process. It's kind of an oversimplification, but it's just one way that a whale can move markets. And I would say that a retail investor could still get the upper hand by trailing their trades. I mean, that's a good way. Like, I follow Nancy Pelosi's trades, you know, in the stock market. But it's what I like about it is it's actually more open manipulation than in traditional like insider trading markets in the stock world. So, and there's ways to see when a certain wallet is moving and making moves, and you can do those similar moves, or it might actually give you pause on a project. XRP is an interesting example because I think they minted 100 billion tokens when they minted, and the Ripple, the company that made it, they hold 46 billion or something like that of them.
Okay.
So to me, that's a huge fail point. Yeah. That's not locked up. They could dump that and reduce the value to nothing if they wanted to.
Kind of the benefit of joining a fund is one, you're no longer that retail little guy. You're part of ideally a larger fund. Do you view funds as whales themselves, and do they have ability on some of the smaller coins to do some market manipulation?
Absolutely. You know, based off of your assets under management, you could definitely be a whale and move the market. I think you could do it obviously easier with smaller cap tokens. That's always going to be the thing. It'd be hard to manipulate Bitcoin or Ethereum. It would take such large funds to do it. But yeah, it's possible. I think funds, they do that. Some funds, Some of them are just, and those might be not as macro focused, right? They might be making riskier plays, shorter time horizons, things like that, just because they're looking for alpha anywhere they can find it.
Can you talk a little bit about security and scams? Like, crypto is supposed to be this thing that no one could ever break into, and yet a couple times a year you see this massive either fraud or breaking into some sort of a decentralized form and being able to just grab a whole bunch of billions of dollars of crypto. So how does that happen?
Yeah, so a lot of the scams are around, you're getting into your wallet just like they would be in any other kind of phishing attempt, or they'll create, just like in an e-commerce world where they'll create a duplicate page and you're putting in your credit card information into something. It's the same type of scam, just a different day, different look, different site. I would say that the other scams are the one that we probably have to be most worried about are just pump and dumps. Pump and dumps are token goes up. They do what's called a rug pull. They sell all of those tokens because they had them not locked up. And then they were able to just pull the rug out from under. And you saw that with very recently Trump coin. That happened. That was a thing. Granted, it still was able to recover quite a bit because a lot of people believed in it.
Yeah.
But again, look at the utility, the team, the investors. I follow larger cap tokens for that reason. They're just less likely to be susceptible to that. I'm weary of social media because there's always, FOMO and FUD. FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FOMO, fear of missing out, right? So people are constantly making news points, some of them fake, talking about fake partnerships. Tron was an example of that. In the last bull run, that token, they were announcing partnerships with all these companies that never existed. The partnerships didn't exist, or maybe they did, but existed in a way that wasn't really honest, right? It was, they talked to somebody and they said, now we have this huge partnership or something. So pump and dumps, there's ways to find it. There's ways to see it, especially in the meme coin space or other things. Look for how many tokens are locked up. It just shows that the people that created it believe in it in a way. So,
would you trust any new coin that gets launched nowadays? I mean, between the Hawk to a Girl and Trump and all that, I feel like every one of them is a pump and dump. Yeah,
I mean, speaking of meme coins, because that's what everything we just mentioned are, I hated them at first. I was like, what is this? This doesn't have utility. This doesn't have value. And then I actually had an aha moment around it. I don't think it's a good investment, but I do think it's kind of the new era of clubs in the world. It is a way to show social support for something just by holding it. Like Trump coin, I doubt many left people were like, I'm gonna buy Trump coin. Same thing with Hawk2. They might just be the Gen Zers that were like, yeah, I need to have some because it's funny. But it is kind of the new social allegiance to something or an ideal or value. And I don't think that runs afoul of what I believe in crypto. I just think it's not a very good investment. But I do believe in, following your values and trying to use it in that way. So we'll see how it matures. Right now, I don't buy them.
Okay, got it. So someone who's never touched crypto before, how do they get in the safest way possible?
I think that learn section of Coinbase, that learn and earn section of Coinbase, right? So now you're getting it before you even buy it. When you set up a wallet, you're going to get a seed phrase. A seed phrase is kind of important to keep track of or to be cognizant of before you do it, because you want to keep really good track of it. It's the only way to recover a wallet if you were to lose it. And so it's usually 16 words. I break it up into two different sections of those words and I store them in two different places. So that's just something to give me that peace of mind that I won't lose my wallet and my crypto.
Can you just define wallet real quick? Because there's cold wallet, hot wallet. Can you just explain what those two terms are?
Yeah, so there's a hot wallet is one that's connected to the internet. There's multiple hot wallets. It's different than an exchange wallet usually, because a hot wallet can hold things like NFTs and other such things inside of it. A cold wallet is cold storage. You are taking that crypto off the internet, off the network. You're putting it usually into a device like a Trezor or a Ledger. Those are the two biggest. And that looks like a USB key, essentially. And it is where you want to store your crypto to make it least susceptible to any kind of point of attack. The reason I said Coinbase is because they have FDIC pass-through insurance on the cash funds that are there. But after you purchase something there, I would move it to, if I'm not staking it, I would move it to a cold storage wallet. Let's see, anything else with that?
Are you kind of against the hot wallet? Is it just too easy to break into?
I think hot wallets are more susceptible to those scams that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Where it's like somebody, you log in and whatnot. That said, I use them. I have them, but I wouldn't keep. It's almost like your checking account versus your savings account, right? You keep a little bit of money in your hot wallet to transact and do stuff in. Your cold wallet should be the main point of storage. The other biggest thing that I see people make mistakes in is they don't verify the address that they're sending to. And then that crypto is pretty gone, right? There's no bank to call to be like, hey, I sent this to the wrong guy. I need my funds back. Sometimes you can recover it. It's pretty unlikely. So always verify the address you're sending it to, making sure it's exactly what it is, and do a test transaction. Send a small amount, as small as you can, and then send again, so that way you're at least sure of things.
Any other way to store? So you've got off internet, hot wallets, then you have the where you buy them in the first place.
The exchange.
The exchanges. Those are really like the three places that you can put it.
Yeah, that's right. And each one has different flavors. There's multiple good exchanges out there. Obviously, I've mentioned Coinbase. There's Kraken. Kraken's good. For hot wallets, there's MetaMask and Phantom. Those sometimes are specific to certain chains, right? Like MetaMask, I believe, is just Ethereum. Phantom is multiple chains now, but I think it started out as just Solana. And again, there's multiple versions of cold wallets. You can do a paper wallet. You don't even need to make it a hardware wallet. You can just send it to an address, and I like the security of hardware wallets, though. Ledger and Trezors are great.
How does an exchange get broken into? The Bybit example you said before, I think it was like 1.5 billion of Bitcoin that got taken.
I actually don't know the single fail point of Bybit there. I did read about it. It's been a while, and in this space, everything moves pretty fast. Mm-hmm. I think they were able to maybe fish into one of the employees, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But I can't definitively say. I forget, actually.
That's a crazy amount of money.
It is a crazy amount of money. I mean, and the question is like, will they get it back? Yeah. And in that case, when it was stolen, I know it was moved into over 8,000 or 9,000 wallets.
Wow.
Then they put it through what's called a mixer service. So it's like crypto goes into one wallet, and then they make all these little micro transactions into even more wallets. And so it basically obfuscates the transactions and where did it originate from, where did it go. And thankfully, like forensics, it's really good on the blockchain. Like people have always said, oh, you could use crypto for, it's hard to track and bad people are going to use it. And it's like, no, the FBI uses it all the time to track people and find those funds. I know they've been able to recover a certain percentage of it already. I think, if they're able to track it all down, what'll happen is like, it'll just be really hard for them to off ramp to like make it into cash somehow. They'll be able to block it. Unless they figure out a solution off net in a way that's like, more money laundering, which I guess if you're down to steal 1.5 billion, you're already thinking about money laundering too.
Yeah, you probably have a system in place.
Yeah, exactly.
You said in the beginning, you're a futurist. Tell me a little bit about where you see this space going 10 years from now. What does this thing look like?
I would reiterate that I think that the space will become more prolific in a way that you don't see it. Mm-hmm. I think there'll be many more projects, and the utility will surge, and you'll see things like NFTs and ICOs come back in a good way. I think Bitcoin will still be super dominant. Obviously, there'll be more tokens. Litecoin might actually, because Litecoin's always functioned like silver to Bitcoin's gold, there might be a pretty good surgence of that because there's only 21 million Bitcoin that can be minted. So if every millionaire right now bought one, there wouldn't be enough. Thankfully, it fractionalizes all the way down to a Satoshi, which is 0.0000000, and so if that ever got to a penny, anybody that holds would be quite rich. And so that's the hope, right, in the macro. I think that AI and crypto go so well together.
Okay.
And because of AI being so hot button and going in places that I don't even think we can imagine, decentralized AI is kind of what we call that. And that will be a thing where machines are talking to machines, and it'll be a manufacturer will have a machine that just places the order from a supplier, and it'll talk to another machine at the supplier, and they'll just adjudicate in crypto, and we won't even see it behind the scenes because the float of cash is so dirty, the transaction costs, all that, and it's smarter than us, so it'll use that.
Very cool. Very cool. Any specific coin or project you're watching right now?
In the line of decentralized AI, there's one that I really like. It's called Morpheus, and it uses the More token. That is for P2P AI agents. So as AI agents, do work between different systems, it is the transaction and rewarding system for those agents to use. I really like it because of the developers that are on it and the partners they have. And it's kind of a newer project, but it's one that I could see having long-term staying power.
XRP and Ripple been all over the news for a long time. It's almost like they were the poster child for the SEC to go after and make an example of. Can you give a little bit of background on what XRP is, what Ripple is, and what was the whole kerfuffle with the SEC?
Yeah, so it was built to be just transactions, right? Like financial transactions, a payment system. And it's got a lot of importance on the landscape because the case itself was around unregistered sales of securities. And what the court deemed was that XRP sold unregistered securities to the institutional investors, but not to the retail investors. And so I think that will be a good hallmark case in how they're regulated going forward. That said, the American government is becoming more and more pro-crypto. We just got a pro-crypto SEC guy. We just got, I think it was around 300 people in Congress are pro-crypto now. So I think while it'll serve as a landmark, it might actually get even better from a regulation standpoint. In fact, XRP, it's funny how it flipped. It went from the SEC coming down on it to now the SEC website itself has a comprehensive roadmap to adoption for a strategic reserve asset to power banks. So it's a complete 180 in my opinion. And I think that there's good things with that and there's bad things with that. The good thing is that government's like, yeah, we could use crypto. That's better than, how we've done banking. The bad thing, same thing with the lockup issue that I mentioned before with, the 46 billion. It's kind of like replacing the devil with the devil you don't. It's not, to me, the system I would use. There's a project called SUI, SUI, that I really like for the same financial instrument for transactions. It's faster, more scalable, and less centralized.
Got it. Has the government gone down the path of picking one at this point? Because it sounded there's some big decisions that have been made recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like with Trump, he's pushing Ripple, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's because they can get some of that 46 billion lockup and they can keep that control that they've always had. Nothing set in stone. I wish there were people pushing smarter decisions in that light, but any step might be the step in the right direction, even if it is XRP. Yeah. Fundamentally, I wouldn't use it, but I still think it's better.
Got it. Okay. Little offbeat. Metaverse, is that dead?
It seems dead, right? Nobody's talking about it, but I think it's far from dead. Web 3.0 will just take time to fully arrive. So obviously we talked about Web 1.0, that's 95. Web 2.0 is 97. We get companies like Google. Web 3.0 is really the next era of user-generated content and value. We talk about virtual reality, we talk about games and things like that. There's now AAA gaming studios coming to the space. We're seeing advancements in virtual reality and augmented reality. But to me, the real piece of Web3 is giving people control of their data, how to monetize it, giving me value for watching ads, making this experience more personalized and wholly my own. And that might start out as just, as I mentioned, with tokens and ads and data, but then it will be eventually all games, virtual reality, things like that will be the Web3 that was promised, the metaverse that was promised.
Excellent. Okay, I just want to, to close off, what's some advice, maybe especially for the Gen X community, a little bit older, may not have their finger very close on the pulse of all these latest news and all that. How do they get started? What is kind of the safest way where they can get still strong returns and ideally diversified?
Yeah, I would say it starts with just the approach. I wish that I knew to take profits and hold through those paper losses when I first got started. Don't be scared of the macro. I do believe Pandora can't get put back in the box. I would buy something to force yourself to learn. However small, and I would watch the market more closely because people are less likely to blindly hate something they've already invested in. Mm-hmm. They might think it's bad, but if it's small enough, they won't care if they lose it, and they can maybe learn a little bit about the emotional side of this fast-moving space. And I would say, yes, buy Ethereum, buy Bitcoin, buy maybe Solana. Those I like for people that just want exposure, buy things that other things get built on top of, right? It's less likely to fail at a layer 1 level if there's layer 2s and layer 3s that are built on top of that. It's just creates less fail points.
Awesome. Very cool. If anybody wants more information about your fund or funds in general, where can they find you?
Yeah. So in the fund, we work with accredited and institutional investors. If you're thinking about a long-term strategy in the space, I'd love to connect. Also looking for connections to allocators, professionals, and anyone who's looking for a deep dive into smart portfolio thinking. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You could also read more on market and strategy on my business partner's blog, cryptomindshift.com. And for any of the Gen X crew that is going to be at some of your events, I might see you there. So connect with me there as well.
Perfect. You're probably going to be the youngest person in the Gen X group, but
it's fine. I'm used to being the youngest guy in a room, or at least I was used to that for a long time. Now it's middle of the road, and I'm a forgotten about old dog.
Fantastic. Chris, thanks so much for spending the time and breaking this down for us. This has been very informative, and we'll put everything in the show notes, and hopefully some people will reach out to you with more questions. I wrote a list of questions, so I'll be reaching out to you myself.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you, man. Great talks.
All right, bye.